experiences in a place, and I coach. You go to the station, they have a great big giant celebration before you even get on the train, and the train is so beautiful.
Don't you think it's like once you're bored, you just like let go, right? Everything else, everything's going to be taken care of. You don't have to do anything.
Nothing. They serve you breakfast, lunch, snacks, beverages, wine, cheese train, where you go through the spiral tunnels. It's an engineering marvel, and I got in the X6, and they were telling you, brake when you see the yellow cone and gun it, and the car swerved, and I've never felt that before. And I was like, I think I'm doing terribly. When I got out of the car and in the next vehicle, I was like, you're doing amazing.
So that's some of the adventures I've had, and if you want, I know sometimes when people are speaking, they say put your phones away, don't take pictures, but if there's anything you want to remember, feel free to take a picture. This is how you can find me at this Bitly link. It has a link to my podcast, which is called Make Your Own Map. I started the very end of December. So in 90 days, my podcast has been watched in 18 countries on 5 continents and growing. And my YouTube channel, which is all of my scuba diving videos, is almost to 2 million views. So I want to tell you a little bit, how did I get started? So in 1981, my family went on a cruise with Royal Cruise Line and the Mediterranean. And it was like my history books came to life. I thought that history in school was very boring. But when I was walking through the pyramids and I saw the Western Wall in Jerusalem, I got to put my own note in the wall. We went to the library in Turkey at Ephesus. I just thought history was amazing, and so I definitely wanted to travel more. However, I was not so good on the swimming side, which is why it came as a surprise that I ever became a diver at all. So I had a near drowning as a child, and I was afraid and completely not interested in the water. But my best friend in college was an NCAA synchronized swimmer. And I went to the pool every single night to pick her up from practice. And she was the one that taught me how to swim. So if you are afraid, I know most of the people here are already scuba divers, so you're not afraid to get in the water, but you might have clients or people that come that are like me and are very, very afraid. So one of the things I always remind people is you don't have to scuba dive first. You could snorkel, you could scuba, and of course you could take, like I did, a very, very small class. And with scuba diving, we never go alone. We always have our buddy, which makes people feel much less afraid. So the last time I checked, PADI had trained 29 million people and counting to explore underwater. So for those of you that aren't familiar, we do have e-learning courses, and at the end I'm actually going to be giving away an e-learning course in case there's something else you want to study. I was out of the water during the COVID coaster, so I took a reactivate refresher class myself at Beaches, Turks and Caicos, which is one of my favorite places to go scuba diving. And of course, with scuba diving, we're always all learning something new. For those of you who haven't been underwater, we start in the pool. You can see on the slide pool class, and then on the bottom of the ocean in the sand. We practice our skills to make sure that we're safe in the water and we know how to work well with our buddies. I actually learned to dive in Monterey in the kelp forest, and kelp is an amazing thing to see underwater, but also incredible for how fast it grows and that it's so sensitive to changes in pH and temperature. It can really help us understand what's going on in the ocean. So early on, I was an elementary school teacher, and you can see me with my students here. One of my friends used to bring to class a boa constrictor. This boa constrictor is called Julius Squeezer, and she also, of course, brought us a camel, because that's what everybody brings to school, right, a camel. Anyway, when I was teaching school, I found scuba, but I learned to dive in Monterey Bay, which is cold water diving, and I learned about this fascinating, amazing thing called warm water diving. And here in the Dive and Watersports Pavilion, we have some of the best opportunities for you to go diving in those places. So make sure you see all the booths and find your next destination. I was definitely interested in less weights, less wetsuit, and more colorful fish. So somehow that actually led me to the mountains, yes. My first job in travel was for Club Med, except they really needed me in Colorado. So I worked at Copper Mountain, And in the picture here, you see the pretty one, that's my sister. And the other one, that's me dressed up as Marge, the nerdy librarian. That was my character in the dating game. And in fact, I always won because the other characters were so scary. And after I worked at Club Med in the mountains, I did work at Eleuthera in the Bahamas, and I did go to Sonora Bay, the Club Med there, and I found out about this magical thing called cruise ships. So I worked for Princess Cruises, that's me dressed up in my uniform, for almost 7 years. I sailed 6 continents. I loved being part of the Love Boat. It was amazing. I used to trade away all my working shifts so that I could scuba dive. I had one contract every week. I was in Grand Cayman and Cozumel. One contract I dove in Aruba every week. It was amazing to go in St. Thomas. I dove with the same dive master every Wednesday, week after week, and I got to be a much better diver because remember, I was terrified from having my early near drowning. So for me, being in the same location over and over again really helped me. Eventually, I got to take scuba diving on the road as a journalist, and here you can see this wall of barracudas. That's at Sipadan, at Barracuda Point. And if you have never been, please put that on your bucket list because Sipadan is one of the most magnificent places I've ever been in Malaysia, Borneo area. You can see the bottom one is when I'm filming in Puerto Rico. I was part of an Orbits web series, and the top was when I went to Cuba to Gardens of the Queen. So all of these trips were just amazing, and I got to write about them. I also was part of, at Beaches, Turks and Caicos, we did a press trip. It was all journalists underwater, and in fact, I didn't realize I was the subject of someone else's filming, which Beaches used for PADI International Women's Dive Day. So here's a little bit of our underwater antics. Gus wasn't actually my buddy. The other guy was a little upset. I was dancing with someone else's buddy. It's a little underwater drama. So this is a different one of my buddies. These are our dive photos from Belize. So if you haven't been underwater in a long time or you don't know what you're going to be seeing, these are some of the incredible creatures in the underwater world that's waiting for you. And one of the things I told you from the beginning is that working with PADI, there's so many ways to help save the ocean and get involved. So Ocean Torchbearers is a place you can find on the PADI website. And some of the things that I've done underwater with Buddy Dive and Bonaire, who's one of the booths that's actually here today, you can speak to them. My buddy took a picture of me in a coral restoration project. And you may have seen repeatedly on the news that the coral needs our help, that there's coral bleaching, there's issues with the changes in temperature. So many different dive masters, dive sites, dive locations, destinations, tourism boards are working hard to figure out how can we help the coral. So you can help, you can in different places volunteer and participate. Another issue that you may be well aware of is the lionfish. So the very first time I saw lionfish was where lionfish belongs, in the Red Sea. And in the Red Sea, they're part of the ecosystem. It's where they should be, and they're naturally kept at the right numbers. Unfortunately now, we find lionfish all around Florida and the Caribbean, and it is not the ecosystem they belong in, and they are causing tremendous problems and decimating the coral. So many places now have the dive derbies, and one of the most impressive things I learned about at DEMA was how there are certain culinary institutes where they're training chefs to prepare the lionfish, because lionfish tastes amazing. So whether you go underwater or not, one of the best things that you can do to save the planet is eat more lionfish. Because if people eat the lionfish, chefs will buy the lionfish, they will fish lionfish, and that will help all of us. So like I said, I was on a dive, one of the dive masters speared a lionfish, and we had that for lunch. So look for lionfish. You can save the planet by eating them. Now, another thing that people love when they're scuba diving is to go different interesting places. And a bucket list opportunity for many people is to stay in an overwater bungalow. So Liku Liku Lagoon Resort in Fiji, I stayed in this over-the-water bungalow. This is I was in the middle bungalow, this is at sunset. And they are changing the world, changing the planet, because the Fijian crested iguana was on the brink of extinction. And at Malolo Island, they've worked hard to change that.
And you can learn about their habitat. The tropical dry forest is the most endangered habitat on our planet, and they are planting a goal of 200 trees a month. So you can come and help plant trees. It is a Naka Baka Levu. Thank you for learning about the Fijian crested iguana.
So when you're not underwater scuba diving, you can help change the world. In Fiji, you can plant trees, you can go on night walks to look for the iguanas. It's really incredible. It's a very small island, but they're making a big difference. So another opportunity I had was I invited to the Solomon Islands, and I got to dive with World War II wrecks. But the main reason I was there, and I wrote about it for Smithsonian Magazine, was because it was the 75th anniversary of the Battle of Guadalcanal. During COVID recently, it was the 80th anniversary, but I did not get to go because it was a COVID coaster. But I can show you, this is something I filmed for a TV program called The Jet Set.
South Pacific in the Solomon Islands. There's 900 islands here. I flew here on Fiji Air, Los Angeles to Fiji, and then 3 hours to get to the Solomon Islands.
I always wanted to do that.
Mo, who's the chief, taught me how to make cloth out of bark, but you have to pound it.
It's soft.
The groom's family will give it to the bride.
The diving in the South Pacific is fantastic. Because of the battles that happened here, I've seen many wrecks underwater. Japanese wrecks, American wrecks, and tremendous creatures. Eagle rays, cuttlefish, turtles. It's really spectacular.
My dive buddy says it's spectacular, that even without a microphone, he can understand every single thing that I'm saying. Very emphatic underwater. So another story I got to do, and this was a surprise to me, was for the Saturday Evening Post. I interviewed a gentleman, a soldier, who was at the battle. He was at the battle 75 years before, and he happened to be a patient of my dad's. My dad is a dentist in Los Angeles. My dad said, "Hey, do you want to interview someone that was at the battle?" And I was like, "Yeah, I would love to, but how's that even possible?" So Roy Rausch actually joined the military on his 17th birthday, July 4th, and went straight to the Battle of Guadalcanal. So that was incredible to meet someone who was actually there. So another thing that happened for me is, as I travel around the world, sometimes people say this is the only thing, or this is an amazing thing, and you don't know if that's really true. So I just want to locate, for people that aren't sure where we are, Indonesia is in between Australia and China. You can see there in Asia, and then there's a closer map of where I was from. Sipadan, I went to Kakavan, which is an island. And then from Kakavan, I went to a smaller island. I went to Darawan, and then I went to Kakavan. So at Kakavan, you can swim with the stingless jellyfish. Now, they told me that I could swim with the stingless jellyfish, but I was wondering if that was really true, that they were stingless. I thought maybe they were joking me. So I went on a small boat from Darawan, an hour to Kakavan, and on the way there, we did a sport I never heard of, which is snorkeling, except you're on a line, like you would use for water skiing, and they pull you through the water. It's not something I can highly recommend, but I saw a lot of fish very quickly. Anyway, we walked up in Kakavan. There's a lake that's separated from the island, rose up with the island, and so the jellyfish have adapted, evolved, changed, whatever word you want, and they do not sting. But there were more jellyfish in the lake than flowers in a field in a super bloom, and I thought, I'm either going to love this or I'm going to die today. So I jumped in the water and I swam with them, and it was great. It's like, if you've never been, it's like swimming in Jello, because they come up against you. So later on, a few months later, I was in Palau, and Palau is amazing. If you've never been to Palau, the Blue Corner, one of my favorite dives in the whole world. So they said, guess what? We're going to go snorkeling with the stingless jellyfish. It is the only place in the world that you can swim with the stingless jellyfish. And I looked at them and I said, are you sure about your answer? And they said, yes, Lisa, Palau is the only place in the world. And I said, well, I've already done it, and this is my first time here. And they're like, oh, you must be confused. I'm like, I'm not confused. I have pictures. So anyway, you can, in my research, there's 4 different places where you can swim with stingless jellyfish. However, there are times when the jellyfish go back into a larval stage, and there are times for the ecosystem that tourists are not allowed because it's not great for the jellyfish or it's not great for the ecosystem. So if this is something on your bucket list, please double check that the jellyfish are available. And just so you would know, there's no bringing of fins because the fins are dangerous to the jellyfish. So our planet is full of wonder, and like I said, I loved Palau. One of the things that I think is incredible about Palau, as far as I'm aware, they're currently the only place that do this, but I hope that more countries will, is they have a pledge. It gets stamped in your passport on arrival, and it's a pledge between you as the traveler and the children of the island that you're going to take very good care of their home. As scuba divers, we often talk about take only pictures and leave only bubbles, but that is not, in fact, how everybody visits other countries. So I think this is a great reminder, and I think it's really impressive. So hopefully, especially more of our, scuba diving destinations, places that are under challenges, will think about that. So I know that our shark friends are often very maligned, especially in the movies. And I just want to say that I went to shark school in Mexico to swim with the bull sharks. This footage is actually from Beaches, Turks and Caicos. But I just like to show a little bit of sharks because it makes me sad that people are so afraid of them and go out of their way to cause trouble for them when they're such beautiful, majestic creatures that have been in the water long before us. They'll probably be in the water long after us. And it is such a privilege to be in the water with any creature. But I just think they're so majestic. And I hope that everyone gets to be with the sharks. And I know there's a lot of legislation right now that's been happening to help the sharks. So nice sharks. Well, that shark was a little close to me. I didn't realize it. Like I said, you can hear me underwater. So as far as my journalism, I've been writing more and more for different places. Business Insider did this story about me quite a few years ago. And in September, I have a book coming out with Post Hill Press and Simon & Schuster. So hopefully next year, the travel show, you can buy it right here, and I'll sign it for you. And I told you that I worked on the cruise ships for 7 years, but I did 2 long trips backpacking all through Asia where I did a lot of amazing scuba diving. So I told you in the beginning that I had a near drowning. So it turns out my whole life, everyone told me that I was very clumsy and accident prone. Turns out that's not what was true. The truth is I had a congenital eye disorder that no one diagnosed. And so I tripped and I fell and I had a lot of accidents, actually for a reason. But during my divorce, I finally worked on that, and my eye doctor suggested that I should do some more challenges. So I did 50 different challenges, which is all in my book, and my 50th challenge was I jumped out of a perfectly well-maintained airplane. And that was the day I learned that bravery is different for different people. My whole life, I thought that some people were brave, like my skydiving instructor, and some people weren't brave like me. But my skydiving instructor was afraid of sharks. And he said he would never go scuba diving. So I said to him, let me see if I understand this. People pay you money to throw yourself out of a plane, and you won't go scuba diving? And he said, absolutely not. He said, I think you're crazy. And that was when I realized that bravery is very, very relative. And it's not like a light switch. It doesn't turn it on and off. We can all be more brave. And in fact, later this afternoon, I have a talk in the other theater about becoming more brave. So around the world, I've been lucky to share stories, and being able to travel, as we know, broadens our perspective. So these are some students at a school in Kenya where I was on safari, and I was showing them pictures of the animals. And this is on a different trip in Mongolia. So this is a gear that I stayed in. We live in different kinds of houses. We dress differently. Here you can see me hula hooping. I got permission to hula hoop with the Maasai warriors. It always makes people laugh when you bring a hula hoop on your trip. And here you can see me with kids all around the world, from Tonga, Samoa, Vietnam, Indonesia, Vanuatu. And the thing that I can tell you, traveling more and more places, is that everywhere I've been, parents want the same thing for their children. They want them to be happy, to be healthy, and to have a better life. So we want you to get some more adventure. So I'm giving away 2 prizes right now. So if you look under your chairs, there's 2 chairs that have my card taped to the chair. I see one over there and one over here. Someone wants to get that one. Yep, they're gonna let you get it because they're all working today. So one has a mermaid on it. Okay, so you have won an e-learning course from PADI. So congratulations. Afterwards, just give me your email address. And the second card, who has the second card, has a heart on it. Perfect. So you have won 2 city passes for Dallas. It's they have 4 different attractions that's worth $108. And if you give me your email address, I will get you that information. So I just want to say thank you so much for joining me. I hope that you will find your next great scuba diving adventure here at one of the booths. And if you would like to contact me, here's all my information. So thank you very much.